Hello, all. Getting started here with a little bit of New York Rangers observations and news. And just scouring through this morning, Russ, I saw that an article in the New York Daily News that talked about Dan Boyle and the fact that Dan Boyle is being sat. Not every game, but he's being in and out of the lineup between him and Dylan McIlrath, their former first-round pick. And to the point that Jeff Gorton, the Rangers general manager, had to speak to Boyle's agent. And this is maybe me reading a little too much into it, but I'll go there and you can shoot me down. We've said that Boyle's contract is immovable. But if Boyle is not being played and he's not getting an opportunity to play in what could be his final NHL season, maybe he would then allow himself to be moved. What do you think?
I think there's a chance of that, and I think that that's what this little powwow was about. It's being professional and saying, hey, we're just so you, if in case you're wondering, we're going to play McIlrath once every 3-4 days and sit Dan because we feel he's more effective that way. And by the way, if Dan doesn't like that, he could waive his no trade, and we'd be happy to trade him.
Right.
That's the simple reality with contracts now. If you're going to have these huge deals and you're going to run them long term, eventually players are going to out-contract themselves from playing because they're old, they cost too much, and their egos get in the way because that's what's driven to the big contract anyways.
Mm-hmm. And you know what? I mean, as we get closer,
wasn't even a long-term deal. His was a bad 2-year deal, but you knew it was bad.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, similar to the deal that the Leafs signed with Stefan Robida, these veteran guys, teams, want these veteran guys on a short-term basis to come in and fill a hole and do whatever, but they have to give these guys the extra year to get them to come to the team. I mean, everybody apparently was interested in Robida from a veteran defenseman point of view, but all of his offers were 2 years. And coming off of the double broken legs that he had with Dallas and Anaheim. And the Leafs, because they wanted him so bad and they wanted his presence in terms of being a professional and being a leader, they wanted him in the locker room and they were willing to give him the 3rd year. Well, now he's in year 2. He didn't make the team. He injured in training camp. He's on the IR, and I swear, through 15 games, you haven't heard the name of Stefan Robida even being mentioned.
Well, I'll tell you this. It's the same thing with Boyle and Tanner Glass. I remember at the time I was up in arms and I said, this is $6 million of dead money for the next 2 years. And people were like, oh, you can't say that. This is short term. It's low risk. Tanner Glass is just $1.5 million. It's low risk. Well, now Tanner Glass isn't even on the roster and they only saved a proportion of that. And Dan Boyle is less than effective. How does this affect your roster now when you're expected to be a Stanley Cup team? It's pretty big, even though it's not a big dollar figure.
Right. Now, Peter, the Jets are not in this situation with any of their players, but and of course, when you're on the show, we have to mention Bufflin. I saw last week, Winnipeg played Toronto. I was very impressed. Bufflin gets the opening goal. James Reimer sort of muffed on that early goal in the first period. And I mean, it doesn't take somebody with great powers of observation to see that Bufflin is a very important part of that team and affects the game. But as things go on, as things get closer to February 29th, I mean, I just don't know whether Kevin Cheveldayoff can risk losing him for nothing in free agency. And at some point, you would think that they have to come to some sort of either an agreement to part ways or an agreement to sign a contract. I mean, where do you think this is going?
You know what? It depends who you listen to. If you listen to the regular lines of communication, the party lines, so to speak, basically there's conversations happening, not very frequently, not very intense, and they're working towards a deal. Mm-hmm. If you go to the more cloudier areas of conversation, the ones that people say in a hushed tone, and you can call it rumor, you can call it speculation, but they're out there, you're hearing basically that Kevin Cheveldayoff is seeing what he can get for Bufflin and is in no hurry to move him because he's got till the trade deadline to decide if he needs to keep him or not.
Right.
And does the price get better the closer you get? It's a shell game. It's a game of poker, all in the same thing, and that's the case. I mean, now and then with the Jets, you throw Andrew Ladd in there too.
Mm-hmm.
I still don't think they're going to move Ladd, though. I have a feeling he will take a less than market value deal and stay. I just have that feeling.
If he gets term. If he gets 5 years.
I've heard two things, term and dollar, that they're apart on, but no one knows how much. The consensus before the season was Ladd is going to be looking for Kessler money and Kessler term.
Whoa.
I don't even know if anyone likes the Kessler money or Kessler term right now, but that's what the market just said. Right?
Yeah, I think Anaheim is okay with it, but Ladd's not Kessler. He's not.
Yeah, based on the fact that Kessler has one.
Kessler.
Yeah, based on the fact that Kessler has one goal,
I know, but he does do a lot of other things. I mean, guys do get paid for other things, and Ladd does a lot of other things. You know, I turned on the game late the other day, and I missed the fight with R.J. Umberger, but he beat up a pretty strong guy in R.J. Umberger too, and that's something where, hey, you're the captain of the team and you're setting a tone. You pay for that. You do.
Yeah. I think the difference between the two, and is the fact that Kessler is a center. He's a big center, and I think Andrew Ladd is a great player. I mean, anybody who wins Stanley Cups with a couple different organizations, and is a contributing player and a leader like he is, you'd love to have that guy in your team. But he's a winger. He's not over the hill. He's not even he's still in his prime, but you can't. I don't think you can pay him over $6 million. And if he thinks he can get that in free agency, then maybe Cheveldayoff says, okay, go out and test the market and see what happens. But I think they have to sign one of them. And to my mind, I'm almost saying, if Bufflin wants to stay, you're probably better off spending your money on Bufflin than on Ladd.
This is the crux of the argument, and I've said this a number of times on here in the blog. The crux of the argument is this: Kevin Cheveldayoff and whatever group he's using, whatever data he's using, whatever scouts he's using, he has to make a bet on which player is less likely to drop off once age 30 hits. Who's going to sustain their play for 5 years? And what are you willing to pay for that sustained play, and where do you see the decline going? It's not going up. It's going down. Right. So what are you willing to pay for it, knowing it's going to go down? And that's his job. He's got to figure that out. The player's job and the agent's job is to figure out where is the best place for me for the last contract of my career. I don't know if there's many places that will want to spend the dollars and terms that the Jets will on either of those players. I think there are places, but there's probably not as many as we think, because we don't know what's going on with the salary cap yet. We will know, but we don't know right now. Right. And if it doesn't really move significantly, how cautious are GMs going to be to avoid the problems that some of them have now? Not everyone's as deft as Stan Bowman is in Chicago and dealing with it, but you can bet no GM wants to have that problem that he has.
Yeah, but they don't end up with it.
Yeah.
I've covered Ladd's entire career. World Juniors, everything. I would take him. And look, Bufflin's won too, but Bufflin has a tendency of either A, being out of shape, or B, going through long stretches and not being great. He's ramped it up lately, and I appreciate that in him. You always get 100% every minute, every moment, everything with Ladd. I'm not saying you don't get 100% out of Bufflin, but Ladd seems like a more committed hockey player. He just does.
I agree. If I'm making the deal, I'm choosing Ladd over Buff, because I think on a return on the trade market, you're going to get more for Buff. You just are, because he's an anomaly. He's a freak of nature, and it's like the sleight of hand with magicians. Ooh, dazzling puck-moving defenseman. Look at him over here while I take this from you here. That's what they see. With Ladd, you're going to say, well, he's 30, he's a left winger. I'd rather work with this guy who's 24 and see what I can get out of him, or do that. You're only going to get this. But puck-moving, strong, physical defenseman, yeah, GMs get, they get stars in their eyes and they lose track of things. That's your value return, is if you move Buffalo. So I'm with you, Russ.
Well, and we'll start the show here, but let me just say this. I mean, right now the Jets are at the bottom of the NHL in terms of salary. I have heard the argument that the ownership, who are multi-billionaires, should, that this team shouldn't be a budget team, that this team should be close to a cap team, but they're basing their what they're bringing in revenue and matching that up with what they're paying in terms of salary. But you also have to factor in the fact that they have Lowry, they have Scheifele, and they have Trouba all coming in on their as RFAs, and they're more than likely, especially with Trouba, as we've seen with Oscar Klefbom and Adam Larson and a number of other defensemen, more than likely they're going to want to try to get Trouba locked up for 6 or 7 years, and that's going to cost them $5 million probably. So that's
if Scheifele continues his pace, he's $4 million base. That's what you're paying Scheifele. Trouba is $5 million base. I think we can all agree there. Say you do re-sign Buff and Ladd, you're now a cap team.
Right.
That's and then guess who else is coming in after next year? Matthew Perreault. Do you think they want to let him go with the chemistry he has with Ehlers and Scheifele? Not a chance.
Okay. Well, let's start the show. Peter, you start off here.
Okay.
Hello, Hockey World. Today is Tuesday, November 10th, 2015.
Hi, I'm Peter Tessier.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Michael Agello, and this is the Hockeybuzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. I'm not going to go in too much into the Hall of Fame ceremonies last night. I mean, it's a nice event in Toronto, the honoring of all the inductees. And I'll just speak personally here. There was no hockey games other than Anaheim and Arizona last night. That was later in the evening. If there were games, I would have been watching the games and not the induction ceremony. There weren't games, and I found something else to watch after about 5 minutes. It's just me. It's a little painful to watch people who are, guys like Chris Pronger and Phil Housley and have been in front of the microphone as not either representatives of the NHL or as players, or Housley's been coach of a World Junior team, or has been coach for Team USA in different events. I just really, to me, it's almost cringeworthy, Russ. I honor them. I think they've had great careers, and I'm glad that they were inducted. But unless I was there, unless it was somebody I knew, it's not a ceremony that I'd want to sit through.
I mean, I'll admit I pop in and out. I do. I usually like to catch a few minutes and sort of get the essence of it. I did get the feeling that maybe these speeches were a little shorter than usual, but maybe not short enough. I know it doesn't sound right, but it's just the way it is. I mean, they're interesting guys, and I do like hearing them. I like seeing the video reels. I like those things. Could the ceremony be shorter? Yes. Would TV like that? No, because they're trying to fill a certain block. So it's not all on the Hall of Fame there. You're trying to get a happy medium there because, let's face it, they're getting revenue from this, and they should, from the TV network. So it's a tough call. I do like it, like all of these kinds of shows. Every one of them, every sport, they tend to run long.
Yeah, Peter.
You know what? It's just not a made-for-TV event. It's that simple. Those speeches are for the people in there, like Scotty Bowman was there listening to Lidstrom last night. That's for him. That's for the relationships, the people who have been close to these guys who are in attendance. It's not made for TV thing. And frankly, you know what? Hockey players really aren't the most colorful speech givers. There's some who are, but it's not like Canton when the NFL does it, because half the guys up there are characters, and it's a different environment. And particularly when you're a Hall of Fame player coming from hockey, where it's traditionally not a me, show me kind of league and personalities in it, other than Jeremy Roenick. That's just the way it is. It's not good TV. I love it. It's necessary. I love visiting the hall when I get a chance. Fabulous thing to see and do. It's wonderful. Doesn't have to be on TV.
Well, but here's the thing. I think it does have to be on TV because if that's your favorite player, if Chris Pronger's your favorite player, you should get to see some of that if you can't make it to Toronto. I was at Tom Seaver's induction in Cooperstown. He was my favorite player. Was it long? Yes. did I kind of, and I loved Raleigh Fingers, so that was a bonus. The other pitcher was a Cleveland Indians pitcher from the 40s. I forget his name right this moment, from World War II.
Early win?
No, it wasn't Early Win, and maybe the name will come to me. But, you know, did I want to sit through that? Honestly, no. But you do. And, sure, Tom Seaver is my favorite player, so I would sit through that whole speech. It's probably the only whole speech I've ever sat through for any player. And I love so many players, but I just only need to see a few minutes. But I think you need to see a few minutes of each.
Yeah, I mean, I would go to Cooperstown when Derek Jeter is inducted. I mean, obviously, along with about 5 million other people, I think Cooperstown will be in. But and let's just say this, and I've said this before: All-Star games, Pro Bowl games are painful. They not to say that Hall of Fame inductions are not meaningless. They're meaningful to the players. They're meaningful to people who love the history of the game, and I respect that. But after the excitement is when they're actually named. The ceremony is for them. It's for their family. It's for their friends, and we're sort of watching in. And the funny thing is, like, Scotty Bowman, 3 of the 4 main players, Scotty Bowman drafted Phil Housley, and he coached Fedorov and he coached Lidstrom for the bulk of their careers. So Scotty Bowman was really involved in yesterday's proceedings. And that's interesting, but I don't know. I think the NHL and I think a lot of professional sports are trying to make these events more interesting. And Russ, to that point, I had heard some things about them toying with the idea of 3-on-3 for the All-Star game, having it a block of 3-on-3 games instead of the regular 5-on-5. What would you think if they did that?
All right. Well, one last thing I want to say about the Hall of Fame is, like, I've been there and I've covered it, but not stayed for the TV event. And I think it is important to, like you said, still have – these guys do tell great stories, and you are able to really write some great things about them and let fans read about it. And I think that part's always special. Just shorten it up a little. I think there's a way to do it, or make it more video-intensive and less on-screen. I think there's a way to do that. As far as the All-Star game, all right, so here's the thing. You're a snob about it. I get it. I've covered a lot of them. There's very few that I've missed in the last 15 years. They are big-time corporate events, as we know, so it's big for the league. It is fun for people to see players of other teams. I know you say, well, they can see them all the time, but I harken back to when I was in Minnesota and I was watching Mark Messier passing the puck to Jaromir Jagr. That was Messier's last All-Star game. Are you going to tell me that sucks? I'll argue with you. So you have that. Now, the 3-on-3 thing, all right, so I was at the All-Star game in Florida where they had the shootout. And we didn't know it was coming, and it was great. For that moment, I wrote a great article. I love the shootout. And now, if I could just go back in time, I would write, I hate the shootout. But I can't do it. So if you do something like this, 3-on-3, and to me it's NHL Open Ice, right? I had that game, and I like playing it. If you do that, and I think Open Ice had 2-on-2, but still 3-on-3 is the closest you can get in a hockey game. It'll be fun for the fans. I mean, we have to remember there are fans paying money to see these guys. You are going to see skill on display. It is a display, right? At the end of the day, it's a display. Last year in Columbus, I have to tell you, that city was energized. The Cannon was as big a star as any player because media guys were jumping out of the seats when the Cannon was getting shot off. And if you remember how many goals there was a cannon shot every, 5 seconds. To me, that was fantastic. That was I didn't even, it didn't dawn on me that it was going to happen that many times, and it became a fun thing. So let's not remove the fun out of it either.
Yeah, half the people in the building. That's
a fair point. I mean, there are people who really enjoy it. I'm not a believer in it. The NHL with it as much as the NFL does. The NBA and baseball seem to have found a way of making it fun. But the NHL going 3-on-3, I'm not sure if that's the best way to do it. I'd actually prefer 4-on-4. Enough room to have things going on, but it gives 2 defensemen, 2 forwards. It's an even thing. Yeah. When you do 3-on-3, maybe you see some goofiness. It's just a little too gimmicky. 4-on-4 is a little closer to the traditional thing, and I know it makes little sense to go 4-on-4 when you're doing 3-on-3 in overtime. But that's just what I'd like to see. Less chance of collision, a little more open ice. It's a nice hybrid between the two.
I will tell you this. There's a lot of thought and discussion that goes into this stuff for the All-Star game because I sat in on a panel once about that, and they were asking, hey, would you like to see this? And everybody was giving an opinion, and what do you think about this? And what about that? And there were there were really real opinions, because, again, we have to remember these players aren't robots. We don't want to see a player get hurt like Mike Richter did doing that. What was that, the fastest shot competition? No, not fast. It was rapid fire shooting, and Mike Richter made 40 saves in a row, and then he tore his ACL, right? I mean, we don't need to see things like that.
Yeah.
So there is a fine line, and I don't want to see a player get hurt. So maybe 4-on-4 is better. Maybe Peter's idea is better because then they're not working quite as hard. 3-on-3, you're working pretty hard. So
yeah,
I could see 4-on-4 being a little better, to be honest.
Okay. Just want to quickly go through Pierre LeBrun again. About 2016 draft class or Hall of Fame draft class. Which players? This is a year where there's not a lot of first-time nominees who are going to get in. This is basically the makeup year where the guys who have been passed over will have an opportunity to finally make it. And there's a list here of about a dozen guys. So I'm just going to quickly, go through the list, one by one, and guys, you give a thumbs up or thumbs down if you think that these guys will eventually get in the Hall of Fame. Maybe not next year, but all down the line, whether you think that they will get in the Hall of Fame. Okay, the first one, and Russ, top of the list probably, Eric Lindros. Do you think
who happens to be in my book, in Philadelphia Flyers Images of Sports, coming out January 11th, and you can pre-purchase it now.
Free plug.
I had to. I do think he should be in, and I've looked at his numbers. Again, look at the impact. I think we have to forget about how many years and how bad it was when he was in Dallas, but look at the impact. I think that's what you have to look at.
Peter.
I think Lindros should be in on his numbers. I don't think he'll get in.
I think he'll get in.
So wait. All right. So because I've had these debates with many friends on different shows. So you don't think he'll get in based on they don't like him?
I think there's enough of a perception in the. I hate using this term, but I've got no other way of using it. The old boys hockey world that says Lindros did enough for the game only for himself that disqualifies him from their votes. That's what I think. I don't know if I'm right.
So he could never outlive the draft stuff? But if that were the case, Eli Manning would never get – not Eli Manning. Who's the – I forget now, the Chargers quarterback.
Phillip Rivers.
Phillip Rivers. He's a borderline guy who maybe would consider for the Hall of Fame someday. Do you think that would happen to him in the NFL?
I'm not going to compare the NFL to the NHL because I think
actually it was Eli Manning that decided he didn't want to play for the Chargers, right? Yeah. So is Eli Manning not going to get in the Hall of Fame?
Right. John Elway's there, and John Elway said he wouldn't play for him. That's stuff's been going on in the NFL forever.
Right.
It's that he got drafted by a team and held out and then made it about Eric Lindros. But he also did it in junior. He also did it growing up. He did it everywhere. And let's remember, it's not the NHL Hall of Fame. It's the Hockey Hall of Fame. Yeah. So you include whatever nonsense you want. If it was a numbers thing, Lindros is in. But I don't think the Old Boys Network and the NHL, who are all part of that group, will forgive Lindros for some of the things he did.
Well, needless to say, I don't think Carl Lindros will get in. But I think what they're going to do is they're going to make Eric suffer. They're going to make him wait a few years. Maybe this will finally be the chance. And the thing is, that he's already waited a couple years, so maybe this will finally be the chance. But okay, let's just go quickly along here. I'll list the names. And
it's hard to go quickly, but go ahead.
I know. Dave Anderchuk. I'm going to say yes, even though he's a compiler. I'm going to say yes, and that he makes it eventually.
I'll say yes because I covered that Tampa team, and he was everything to them.
I'll say yes. I think Anderchuk had a reasonably decent career, and I think, there's nothing negative about him. Let's look at it that way.
Right.
He's a great guy. I mean, he is.
Sergei Zubov, former Ranger defenseman who won the Cup in '94. Russ?
You know, I wish I could relook at his numbers, but if I went for the fact that he won multiple cups and he was always on top of his game, I don't see how he doesn't get in.
I think eventually, yes. Peter?
I think he does too. And actually, Zubov had a long career.
He did.
You know, and he wasn't ineffective near the end. He still played. I think there's a good chance. Yeah, I think he'll get it.
Another compiler, but a guy who even late in his career was a contributor to a Stanley Cup winner, Mark Recchi. I think yes, Russ.
Yeah, I'm going yes on Recchi because when you go back and look at some of his years, he had some fantastic years, like amazing years. Not just like, oh, he was okay. He had some stellar years, and he did have a great career.
Peter?
Yeah, I think Recchi will get it.
Doug Wilson. Peter, you go first.
Doug Wilson?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Russ?
No.
Yeah, I mean, for his time, I mean, I remember the one year, I think it was in early 80s, he scored over 30 goals, but I don't know if he was great long enough to be a Hall of Famer. He had, for 3 or 4 years, he was one of the best defensemen in the NHL, but I don't know if he was good long enough. Another one here, Kevin Lowe, which is, Russ, I mean, he is a great defensive defenseman. If they let Rod Langway in, you might think that they would let Kevin Lowe in, but I'm not so sure. What do you think?
I'm going to say no because if Ken Morrow can't get in, then Kevin Lowe can't get in.
Peter?
Oh, man. Stanley Cups.
I know.
Ken Morrow, Stanley Cups, gold medals.
Yeah. I think he'll get in because he's part of that group, just that alone.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, that's a good comparative. Ken Morrow was part of the Miracle on Ice in 1980 and won 4 Stanley Cups with the Islanders, and he's not even being mentioned as a possibility. So, Pierre Turgeon, former first overall pick with the Buffalo Sabres, long career, good numbers, but I don't think he ever won a cup. Or did he win a cup with Montreal? I don't think so.
No.
I don't think he won a cup.
Did he win one with Colorado?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. I'm going to say no because I don't think he held on to his greatness long enough either.
Peter?
Yeah, I agree with Russ. I think that's a really good way of winning it. Really good way.
Okay, a name that was previously mentioned by Russ, Jeremy Roenick. Long career, good numbers, colorful character. What do you think, Russ?
It's a tough one because he's one of the great American players, right? And it's not the NHL Hall of Fame, and so he has contributed greatly internationally too. I think one day down the road it might happen. I just don't think yet.
I agree. Down the road. Peter?
I think they're going to do it, and I think they're going to do it because they know he is going to provide some tails on that speech and just jazz it up and make it a made-for-TV event.
They're going to have a 7-second delay, Peter.
Yeah. I mean, I know the end was not pretty for JR, but he was, from an American standpoint, he's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I mean, if you go to the Sportsology YouTube page and watch his interview from the All-American Prospects game as a coach, that's classic JR. Just go watch it. You'll see what I mean.
I was standing next to him. I was laughing too. Theo Fleury. Russ?
I have a soft spot for him, but he just didn't hold it long enough. He didn't.
Peter?
Yeah, bang on again, Russ. That sums it up perfectly.
I agree. I agree. Alexander McGillney. I'll start here. I have a soft spot for Alexander McGillney. You know, fantastic, skilled player. You know, the 76 goals with the Sabres. Thing is, his career, he continued to be he was never, I don't think, the best winger in the league, but he was a top-end winger for a number of years, was very effective with New Jersey and Vancouver and Toronto. I think he's a Hall of Famer. Russ?
I'm trying to look up how many years do we think he played in Russia?
Well, he came over at 19.
So he probably played 3 years in Russia. He probably lost a few, right?
Yeah.
He
I would put
defected.
him in. What'd you say, Peter? Sorry?
He defected.
Yeah.
He defected.
Yeah.
And look, Peter Nedved defected too, and I'm not going to put in Nedved, but no, I mean, because I don't want people to think, oh, because he defected, you're putting him in. it was a scary situation he was in. He overcame it. When he scored 76 goals, there wasn't anybody better, and he was a top-notch player for a good amount of time, and he always had a star quality to him, so I would put him in.
Peter? Peter, what do you think? Uh-oh.
He's frozen.
Okay. Well,
he's thinking about it.
He's pondering. Okay. When Peter comes back, we'll catch up on that one. Next one is Paul Kariya, and I think Paul Kariya may eventually make it because his career was shortened. You know, we have examples already of guys like Cam Neely whose career was shortened by the injury, the leg injury. You know, the limited window of the career. I mean, Paul Kariya his career was limited by concussions. So I think Kariya will eventually get in. Peter, you're back. Give me your vote, yay or nay on McGillney, and then Paul.
Oh, yay, McGillney. If Bure's in, I think you got to put McGillney in.
Okay. So, what do you think of Kariya?
Here's the thing about Paul Kariya. I first heard about him when he was with the University of Maine, right?
Right.
He still has the NCAA record for points in a season. 100 points in 39 games. Now, I'm going to tell you, goaltending wasn't great back then, but it's hard to score 100 points in 39 games no matter who's in net.
Yeah.
Besides a great NHL career. I mean, he had 402 goals. I'm putting him in. He actually is a complete point-a-game player, too. Even with his problems, he's in.
Okay, Peter, would Paul Kariya, yay or nay?
Ooh, that's a tough one. You know, there were times when he was one of the most exciting guys in the NHL to watch.
Yep.
I think he's going to get in. I don't know if I would put him in, but I think he's going to get in.
Okay, I'll pair these two together.
You're a waffler.
Yeah.
I'll pair these two together because they have similar circumstances, although one came to the NHL and played for a while and was pretty successful. Alexander Yakushev, who won 2 gold medals for Russia and played in the famous 72 Summit Series against Team Canada, and Sergei Makarov, who was in that Miracle on Ice game, I believe, and also played for the Calgary Flames. And was he on the Cup winner in '89? I think he was.
I think he was, and he's also the oldest Calder winner, and there's the Makarov rule too. So.
Yes. I think yes for both, especially since I think that the Hockey Hall of Fame wants to start honoring more of those Russian players who haven't been honored, because I think you have to for the history of the game. You have to honor those players. Peter, you first. What do you think?
Yeah,
Makarov and Yakushev.
I definitely Makarov for sure. Makarov was an amazing player, and he made up one of the best lines there in hockey history, the KLM line. God bless Vladimir Krutov and his, but he was amazing. I think he should be in. And I can't say that for the other chap.
Okay, Russ.
You know, I saw that Red Army movie, and I knew a certain amount about these players, but there was a lot we didn't know, right? And I felt like I learned a lot in that movie. I would say yes to both and put them in together.
Mm-hmm. Just mute yourself, Russ, while or is the phone?
It's done. Somebody was leaving a message. Sorry.
Oh, no problem. Okay, 2 more. One has been waiting for a number of years, and I'm a little surprised that they haven't let him in. But I don't know. Steve Larmer, former winger of Denny Savard with the Blackhawks, I believe won a cup with the Rangers in '94. I mean, I always thought Steve Larmer was a very good winger. I don't know if this is the Hall of Very Good. If it is, then he makes it. But I'd probably say a marginal no. What do you think, Russ?
I'm going to go with a big no.
Okay.
Yeah, I like Larmer, but no.
Okay. And the controversial one, and I know it's brought up every year, but I'm going to bring it up because it pisses me off that he's not in, and that's Paul Henderson. I mean, Paul Henderson, in terms of his career NHL numbers, they're average. But in terms of a meaningful hockey moment, there's nothing as big as the Summit Series in '72 and his performance in that series. And you can make an argument that some of the player that Jim Craig should make it because of 1980 or things of that nature. But I don't think so because his career in the NHL was less than 100 games, and he was not a good NHL goaltender. But Henderson had a pretty good NHL career. He was an effective forward for Detroit and Toronto, then went to the WHA, I believe. But in that series was the best player in those final 2 games when it mattered. Peter, you first. What do you think? Paul Henderson, yeah or no?
I think because his goal is, even kids today in Canada still see that goal. They're taught the importance of that goal and where the world was at that point in time and all these different things.
Yep.
There is no other play in hockey that has ever meant as much. There just isn't. There's lots of great ones, lots of enigmatic things, or flying through, Gretzky to Lemieux in '87. All sorts of things. But every time, and I'm speaking of this in Canada, it comes back to that goal.
Mm-hmm.
It comes back to that moment. And for that alone, yeah, he should be there. Not because he's Paul Henderson, but because of that goal. And it's a Hall of Fame, and there's no famous moment in Canadian hockey history than that moment.
Russ?
All right, so you're setting me up to be a heel here because I'm an American, and you're asking me about the greatest Canadian goal ever, and I'm going to go no, and my answer will be, Brian Doyle hit .450 in the World Series, may have won the MVP, he got a ring, no.
Yeah, but Brian Doyle's career was nothing. I know
Henderson had a good career. I just looked up his WHA numbers. They were good. They weren't a point-a-game numbers, though, even in that league, and he should have been a point-a-game in that league. He should have been.
Yeah, and I'm saying that his NHL WHA career are good. They're not even close to being Hall of Fame worthy. I'm talking about him as in the international aspect and as a symbol of that very key moment in hockey history. I'm an American. I was 5 years old when that series took place. I probably was watching it with my brother, but now in retrospect, years and years later, I have the tape of Game 8 between the Russians and the Canadians. I've watched it till the tape is worn out. It's a phenomenal event. And he, if it wasn't for him winning, scoring the game winners in Game 7 and Game 8, that would have been an embarrassment to Canada to lose to the unknown Russian team, which we know now was a team that was very good.
So you know what? So you just keep a special spot for them in the hall, for the whole team, and give them their own wing forever. I can't put them in them.
Russ, that's an interesting point because I was going to say I would do that for the 1980 Olympic team, American Olympic team. I think they deserve a spot. Because
they do have a spot. They do have a little spot.
But make it a thing about them. And you know what? And then include, the other side, that documentary on the Russians as well about this. Because I guess those moments are more, hockey was the game that was played, but it was more than hockey. And if you didn't live then, right, my kids will never understand what this means.
No.
They'll never understand the weirdness and the politics and the way we were taught to think of Eastern Bloc countries that we lived through then.
Yeah, we were pretty much taught to hate the Russians. We were.
Yeah, we hated them. We wanted bad things to happen to them.
Yes. But that's the reality. That's how we were brought up.
Absolutely.
Hey, I'm sorry. I can remember as a 12-year-old kid watching the game U.S. versus Russia on a black and white TV in my parents' basement, jumping for joy when Eruzione scored the goal. And the thing was, I was watching it live because it was live on Canadian television. It was not live on U.S.
Right, I was watching a tape delay, yeah.
Yeah, so I think it was Don Chevrier who was the announcer. They were. That
was the one time living in Buffalo paid off for you.
Thank you, Russ. Thank you very much. I hope the Bills kill the Jets.
Okay. It's going to come down to that. Hey,
yes.
next show I'll wear a helmet.
There you go.
Would that make you feel better?
I hope
you can have your loser carnival coach.
I hope IK goes at Darrell Reeves.
IK won't even have a tackle in that game. I bet you he doesn't even play it down.
Probably not, but like if Darrell Revis is a captain, I hope he goes at his knees as the coin flips.
Yeah, maybe you'll have the ghost of Joe Ferguson in that game to help you.
Anyway, Richard Todd. Just remember that name.
I was at that game.
Yeah. Oh God, you were.
I was in the end zone. First play of the game, I think it was Bruce Harper fumbled. Buffalo recovers.
Yeah.
I have a little bit of alcohol in me. I look around and I'm like, there's like 3 seconds off the clock, and I'm like, did this just happen? Like I was decimated, but it was a pretty good game overall.
2 words: Bill Simpson. Okay. Anyway, a little bit of news today. From the World Cup, about the World Cup. Both Doug Armstrong, the GM of Team Canada, and Dean Lombardi, the GM of Team USA, were making hints that there's going to be some significant changeover in the rosters. I know that Armstrong came out and named 4 players that are going to be on Team Canada's radar, and they were Brendan Gallagher of the Canadiens, Jake Muzzin, and Tyler Toffoli of the LA Kings, and Mark Stone of the Ottawa Senators. Now, Peter, him coming out and saying that, I mean, we still don't know what's going to happen with the Olympics, but one of my fears was the fact that they would do with the World Cup what they normally do with the World Championships, is sort of make it as an entree, make it as an entry level for players that they think will be part of the Olympic situation 2 years down the road. I don't, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know if Gallagher and Muzzin and Stone and Toffoli really make it, in my mind, for Olympians, but I think they're going to give them a chance. What do you think? Is that what do you think the mindset of Team Canada is? To give these players sort of entry level entrance into the international program?
I think that's part of it. I just honestly, I think they've probably had conversations with some guys, and there's probably some guys who will say, "I won't do the World Cup, but I'll do the Olympic." Because frankly, the World Cup's a made-up event. It's a fabricated event, and
not really. I mean, it's not fabricated. I mean,
it's fabricated. It's a made-for-money NHL propaganda machine.
Okay, but what is the Olympics?
If they had 6 and they could have kept it going, they did. It's a made-up thing so the NHL can cash in on money that it's not getting right now.
And who doesn't cash in on the Olympics?
The NHL.
Well, they're the only ones. But, I mean, the idea of the Olympics is so everybody could cash in. I mean, really, if you think about it.
But they don't cash in, though.
Who doesn't cash in?
The risk on it. At least this way you can go when Shea Weber rips a slap shot and kills someone, at least this way you can go back to the GM and say, at least you're going to get part of this, your team's getting part of this revenue. At the Olympics, you just say, sorry, too bad, I guess we won't go next time. I'm so sour on this event for all the wrong reasons. There's enough hockey. There's enough things to watch. We don't need the NHL going into our pockets for $7,000 for 12 games and platinum seats and Maple in the Air Canada Centre. And just, I'm sorry, I'm not there. I like.
Is that because the Blue Jays are finally good that you're willing to give up this? Is that why?
Yeah, I just don't care about it. I don't think the ratings will be that good. I will go watch my 12-year-old son's tryout before I spend money on that.
Here's the thing. I think the ratings will be pretty good. I think what the NHL is trying to do, though, is trying to elevate this to the point where they make everybody forget about the Olympics, so when they announce they're not going, then you're not going to, it won't be as bad.
That's great, but unfortunately, I'm thinking about training camp and my team and all these things then. I'm not thinking about an international competition.
And Peter, you're not the first one to bring it up. I know that there was an article by Dave Feschuk in the Toronto Star last week that got a lot of heat regarding, Mike Babcock being named head coach of Team Canada, and that tournament is going to be taking place right during training camp for the Maple Leafs. So how involved can he be with training camp with the Maple Leafs when he's going to be coaching Team Canada? And the general consensus was for most of the fans was it's Team Canada. Team Canada matters, but to a lot of Leaf fans, I'm sure they all care about Team Canada, but there are some people who care more about the Leafs than about an international tournament. So
all right, here's the thing. You're a spoiled Canadian, Peter. I'm a spoiled American. Mike, you're somewhere in the middle because you're on the border. But here's the thing. We forget, and I remember the impact of this. I knew people of Czech descent that were thrilled with the World Cup of Hockey, people of Finnish descent that were thrilled, Swedes, because they're getting to watch their heroes play, with the country logo there, and that does mean something to them. And so I think it's easy for us to be sour and say that, but we can't put ourselves in their place because we have hockey all the time. The NHL's here all the time. It's not there all the time, though, so that they're getting to watch something, and it's probably more special to them than a lot of people here, but it is special to them. It is.
I think that's a totally fair point, Russ. And you know what? If pack those World Championship stands every spring and filled the rafters with them, same with the World Juniors in Europe, I'd have a lot better chance of believing that. They don't. They get.
But these are NHL stars. That's the difference.
Yeah.
Those guys are amateurs. These guys are NHLers. I'll give you a story, okay? I have a friend who's married to a Czech woman, and I remembered I got a hold of a World Cup jersey, and it was Peter Pruka. I got it because he's a Ranger, right? So I said, all right, it's kind of cool. I didn't even make it home with that Peter Pruka jersey. He found out I had it. He goes, well, can I see it? And I'm like, why do you want to see a Peter Pruka jersey? He explained about his wife. Then he takes me up to his man cave and makes me a trade for a game-used hockey stick for a jersey that I had just bought basically on clearance because it meant that much to his wife.
Well, look, my wife has sentimental things too. I get it. Look, I'm not trying to diminish your point. I think your point's totally valid. I'm a cynical.
And it didn't hit me until then. I mean, honestly, I didn't give it a second thought. I'm like, my thought was, this is a Peter Pruka jersey. What do you want this for?
I guess if there was a league that was taking Canadian players and they were playing someplace else and I didn't get to see them play, I would think different about it. Absolutely. I think that's a totally valid point.
Russ,
I'm cynical about the thing, but I see why in European countries this is an opportunity for them to enjoy something that we get to enjoy a lot more. That's a fair point. It has some merit to it.
Russ, just think what you would have gotten for a Thomas Caberlet jersey. Okay, a couple injury notes here, and then I want to talk about a tweet that I got yesterday. Carey Price is going to be out another week. He went for a second opinion in New York, apparently, regarding this mysterious lower body injury that he had, and they're basically going to play it safe. I mean, Russ, it looks to me like they're just being extra careful because they're still winning, and Condon is playing very well in net, so they don't have to rush him. I sort of agree with, he will be the reason if they get to the finals or win a Stanley Cup that they win, so why not be extra careful?
Yeah, I've seen some tweets about Condon I never thought I would see, so yeah.
I mean, Peter, it makes sense to be extra careful on Carey Price. I mean, it's early in the year. They're at the top of the NHL standings. Why not take discretion is the better part of valor and just wait an extra week.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. The other injury news is that Pavel Datsyuk apparently will be returning to the Red Wings lineup on Friday. Peter, the thing is, a lot of people thought that there would be not a lot of effect in terms of a transition from Babcock to Jeff Blashill, that Babcock had sort of worn out his welcome in Detroit. I know the players, after 9 years of being just beaten over the head by, he's a guy who's, very authoritarian. I mean, he's a great coach, but I think after a while you sort of tune that out, that they would like maybe the more player-friendly guy in Blashill, and they're only a game over 500, and they have had the benefit of Dylan Larkin playing well as a rookie and some other players playing pretty well, but they're not a raging success story, so they need Datsyuk to come back and be effective.
Absolutely. Who does? I mean, what team could survive the loss of Datsyuk? I mean, that guy's a stud. Yeah, I mean, let's see what happens. And, maybe Larkin cools off. Maybe Datsyuk comes back. He takes a little bit to heat off, and there's a momentary blip. But, I mean, like all things, Detroit's just a balanced team, right? That's just kind of what they are. And they always have been. They've had superstars, but they're neither the flashiest guys. They're never the highest scoring guys. They're just solid. I mean, Zetterberg's had a great start to the year. Mm-hmm. Let's see where this goes and give them some time. I think right now it's like, It's like Saturday at the Masters. 15 games in, it's moving time. Now we're going to start seeing some separation in some areas. I think rubber's hitting the road. Teams are balanced, they're moving, everyone's familiar. Now we're going to see who's really standing up and if anyone's going to move up a little bit or if anyone's going to fall off. That's what's going to happen the next 2 months. Key injuries, things like that will start happening. So when you're getting a guy like Datsuk coming back from injury, it could be a really good thing for them.
Russ, I mean, you can't underestimate. Datsuk is one of the best players in the league in spite of his advanced age, in spite of his injury history. I mean, he still is a very effective player. So maybe people who thought that Detroit was going to be one of the top 3 teams in the Atlantic Division didn't factor in how much he would be missed this early in the year. I mean, do you think that there will be a sizable pickup in their success with Datsuk coming back?
Yeah, I mean, he invented puck possession. I mean, the puck is always on this guy's stick, and he always scores these. He may not score 50 goals a year, but he scores meaningful goals, and he does make players around him better. So absolutely, there'll be a big boost.
Okay. I got a text, or not a text, excuse me, a tweet from a watcher of the Buzzcast, and for some reason he was watching a show from back in July when, and I'm not sure who was on the show, but I'm sure it was me and Eck and a few other people, and we had talked about the teams that we assumed would be in the bottom 4 or 5 of the league, and I think we went throughout the summer and leading into the season that these 4 teams were virtually guaranteed to be in the bottom 4, and they were the Arizona Coyotes, the Carolina Hurricanes, the New Jersey Devils, and the Toronto Maple Leafs. If you look at the standings, Arizona is over 500, and they won again last night in Anaheim in overtime on a Michael Bodker goal. Carolina is a couple games under 500, but I think is surprising some people with how they're playing better than a lot of people thought they would.
Let's see how they play tonight.
Yeah, and New Jersey is holding on to a playoff spot, which nobody thought. So the only one of these 4 teams that has sort of followed what people thought they were going to be is the Toronto Maple Leafs, who are 2-8-4, and will probably get destroyed by the Dallas Stars tonight in Dallas. Peter, you first. I mean, do you think that the 3 teams that have been reasonably successful right now, do you think they're mirages, or do you think that this is where they're going to end up throughout the season?
Man, the 10-game and 20-game marks are critical, and some of the analytics guys say there's some predictors in there that can show you there's not much difference between where 10 is and 20 in terms of who's a mirage and who isn't. I'm just saying what I've read. I'm not saying it's right or not. I'm just saying what I've read. Yeah, I think that there could be some things in there that have some teams have some staying power. It's kind of an odd year so far. Yeah, 15 games in, hard to say, but it's an odd year. I mean, you brought that up, Mike, and I immediately checked what I said to how the West was going to do in my blog. I'm so far off the mark, it's ridiculous. I mean, it's like I reached in for a rabbit out of the hat and I pulled out an alligator. That's how bad my are. Yeah, but there you go. I mean, it's
we all know what predictions are. I mean, obviously predictions, we're all guessing, right? But the thing is, and we might have some data, there's 18% of the season in. 18%. Yeah. Tell the Ottawa Senators last year with the run that Hammonds was going to go on and everything else, how they were after 18%. They were probably dead last or second to last. It doesn't mean anything.
Devin Dubnyk.
Yeah. It means nothing. It means zero. Analytics-wise and otherwise, you could show me numbers from now, and I'll say, show me numbers 2 weeks after the All-Star break. Then I'll start believing.
Well, here you go. The top 5 teams in the NHL are 20 points or over. From 6th to 27th, the difference is 8 points.
It's parity.
So it's exactly. But the thing that I take from this, and I look at the 4 teams at the 3 or 4 teams at the bottom. Edmonton without McDavid, who are 5-10. Colorado, who have been abysmal.
Wait. Edmonton's not in that playoff spot yet?
Nope. And neither is San Jose, Russ. The team that was supposed to win.
San Jose's not in the playoff spot?
I don't think so.
You sure? You better check again.
I'll check the standings.
You know what? Here's my bottom 6 in order from 9th to 14 in my prediction. Dallas, San Jose, Colorado, Vancouver, Edmonton, Arizona.
You got a couple right.
Yeah.
San Jose is in the wild. They're out of the wild card. They're not in the top 3 in the Pacific. They have 14 points. They're a point behind the Arizona Coyotes for 3rd in the Pacific. So they're not in the playoffs right now. But Colorado. I think people thought Colorado would have a little more success, but they're having problems scoring. Edmonton without McDavid. And I said when McDavid got hurt, they were going to resort back to the Edmonton Oilers of last year. Yeah, and well, 1 or 2 of us said that, Russ. Somebody else didn't.
Right.
And they have.
And it's gonna be an easy bet, easy winning.
Yep. Yeah. I'm wondering what we're going to get for that one, but
or won't get,
or what we won't get for it. But Columbus. See, and this is the thing, and we mentioned this yesterday. Columbus has 8 points, and they're 4-10. But since Tortorella took over, they lost the first 9, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're for at least the first 8. If they're either 4-2-4 or 4-1 under Tortorella, so there is talent there. That team is not going to end up last.
No, and on my other show though, and we had somebody from Columbus on. We all pretty much agreed it's going to take for like 35, 40 games just to get rid of that start, even if you're good.
Yeah, but the thing is, even though it's going to take 35 or 40 games to maybe get the swing of things under Tortorella, for them being 2 games over 500 with a new coach in a new direction is a pretty good statement. I mean, they're getting better goaltending out of Bobrovsky and they're getting better scoring. But my point is, I think, God forbid for those people who don't want Edmonton to get a lottery pick, they're going to get a lottery pick because
they are.
They're going to get a lottery pick. Probably Colorado is, and I think Toronto definitely is because Toronto's going to continue to struggle throughout the first half of the year, and then they start trading off some players, and it's just going to make them stay at the bottom. They may play better later in the year as they get Babcock's system, but there's not going to be enough talent there to win games, and you've seen that over the last week. They played great. They played. Peter, you saw the game against Winnipeg. It was 2-2 in the 3rd period until Burmistrov scores that goal with a few minutes left. I mean, That was a tight game. Toronto was competitive in that game.
I thought the Leafs played a better game than the Jets, frankly. Numbers didn't say that from a possession factor, but I thought up until midway through the 3rd, the Leafs held everything the Jets are throwing at them in check. And that's a major credit to what Babcock's done with them. And you know what? There was an article that came out after that, just to go on a little side rant here, with Ken Campbell of the Hockey News, where he said the Jets are bucking analytics, and they started dumping it. Well, the whole point they dumped it was because the analytics said you can't get it in past these guys. And, I mean, it's sort of a funny thing, but that's how well Toronto did, and they deserve some credit. That's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah, but Mike is wrong here because Eck and I said Toronto would get better under Babcock, and they're in 29th, and they are better. He thought they'd be dead last, so there you go.
Oh, God.
He was hoping for dead last.
No, I'm looking at that roster, they will be dead last. But that's my opinion. But anyway. Okay, guys, great show. We will be back tomorrow with another edition of the Hockeybuzzcast. For Peter Tessier, for Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. And remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.